Hey everyone, and welcome back. Have you ever just stopped and looked around your house and wondered what's actually in all the stuff we use every day? It turns out, from the medicine in your cabinet to the paint on your walls, we are absolutely surrounded by these super carefully crafted chemical recipes. So today, we're going to pull back that curtain and take a look at the real science behind all these everyday things.
I mean, think about it. That awesome color on your bedroom wall? Well, that's a chemical recipe, and it's specifically designed to stick, to cover, and to last for years. And those cleaners you've got under the sink? Yep, another precise chemical cocktail. The key thing to remember is that these aren't just random ingredients thrown together. They are products designed to do a very, very specific job. So what do scientists even call these everyday recipes? There's actually a proper term for it, and once you know it, it's kind of the key to understanding how everything from paint to pills is actually put together. And that term is formulation. Now, what's really important here are those two phrases, specific ratios and particular purpose. This is not like, making a salad where you can just toss in a little extra lettuce or tomato. Nope. In chemistry, every single ingredient is measured out so precisely to get exactly the result you want. A medicine is the perfect example of this. A single little pill is an incredibly sophisticated formulation. Of course, you've got the active drug, the part that actually helps you. But then you have colorings, so you know which pill is which. Sweeteners, so it doesn't taste awful. Smoothers, to help you swallow it. And even these things called inert fillers, which are really just there to make the pill big enough to actually pick up. And get this is the part that always blows my mind. That active drug, the stuff that's actually doing all the work, it often makes up only about 5 or 10% of the whole pill. The other 90% is that whole formulation we just talked about, all designed to deliver that tiny bit of medicine to your body safely and effectively. Wild, right? Okay, so this brings us to a pretty fundamental question. What are these formulations and the ingredients inside them really made of? To understand the recipe, we have to first understand the building blocks. Now, in everyday life, we might say something is pure if it's, organic or natural. But in chemistry, the definition is way stricter. A pure substance, like you see here, has only one type of thing in it, just one element or one compound. See how all those little blue circles are exactly the same? There is nothing else mixed in. That's pure.
So how can you tell them apart in a lab? Well, the dead giveaway is how they act when you heat them up. A pure substance has a super sharp, fixed melting and boiling point. Like pure water, at sea level, always boils at exactly 100 degrees Celsius. But a mixture, say salt water, gets all mushy. It'll start boiling, but the temperature will keep rising. It boils over a range of temperatures. And here's the cool part. We use this property all the time. When you see a truck like this out salting the roads in the winter, that is literally chemistry in action, right there on the street. By adding salt to the water, we're purposely making a mixture, and that mixture lowers the freezing point so ice can't form right at 0 degrees. It keeps the roads a whole lot safer. Okay, so we've established that most things around us are mixtures, but what if you need to be a chemical detective? Let's say you've got a mysterious note written in black ink, and you need to know exactly which pen it came from. How do you, unmix the ink? For that, we use this amazing technique called chromatography. I know the name sounds kind of complicated, but the idea behind it is actually super simple. All you need are two parts: a stationary phase, which is something that stays still, like a piece of paper, and a mobile phase, which is something that moves, like a solvent, could even be water. The best way to think about it is like a race. First, you put a spot of ink on your starting line. That's on the paper. Then you dip the very edge of the paper into the solvent. That's the starting gun. The solvent starts creeping up the paper, and as it passes the ink spot, it grabs the different dyes in the ink and carries them along for the race. And they're off.
Now here's where the magic happens, the separation. See, some dyes really like the moving solvent, that mobile phase, so they stick with it and travel way, way up the paper. But other dyes are more attracted to the paper itself, the stationary phase, so they kind of lag behind. In this race right here, you can see that blue dye absolutely loved that solvent. It traveled the farthest, it's our winner. So we've run our little race, and we've separated all the colors. That's cool, but how does it actually help us identify what those dyes are? We need a way to look at these results and get a real definitive ID. And we do that by calculating something called the RF value. Now, RF just stands for retention factor, which is really just a fancy way of describing how far a substance traveled compared to how far the solvent it was in traveled. And the formula could not be easier, for real.
You just measure the distance the substance, so your colored spot, traveled from the starting line. Then you measure how far the solvent traveled in total. You divide the first number by the second number, and that's it. You've got your RF value. Let's just do a quick example together. So you can see the solvent front, that's the highest point the water reached, is at 12 centimeters. And substance A, that top spot, traveled 8 centimeters. So we just do the math. 8 divided by 12, which gives us an RF value of 0.67. See? Simple. And here is the most important takeaway, the RF value. It's like a chemical fingerprint. As long as you use the same paper and the same solvent, so under the same conditions, a specific substance will always give you the exact same RF value. That means you can compare your result to a database of known fingerprints and find your match. Now, chromatography is awesome for things with color that you can see. But what about all the stuff we can't see? I mean, how in the world do chemists identify invisible gases? It's a really good question, right? You obviously can't put a dab of gas on a piece of paper and watch it race. So you need a totally different toolkit, a series of simple but really clever chemical tests. And here they are. This is basically your gas identification cheat sheet. Each of these common gases has its own unique test that gives a unique telltale sign that it's present. If you think you have oxygen, you stick a glowing splint in it and poof, it relights. For hydrogen, you use a lit splint and you get this awesome little squeaky pop sound. Carbon dioxide, just bubble it through lime water and it'll turn milky. And chlorine has this cool power to bleach damp litmus paper completely white. So there you have it. From the ink in your pen to the very air that we breathe, chemistry gives us these amazing tools to analyze and really understand the world around us. So now that you know the basics of how to separate a mixture and identify what's inside, take a look around you. What formulation, what everyday chemical recipe are you most curious to unmix?